Hi, this is Kelly Tolman, and welcome to Literature Discussions. In this recording, I'm going to talk about some of the ideas that are explored in Chapter 1 of Lord of the Flies. So, to begin with, I would call your attention to the title of the chapter, which is The Sound of the Shell. It's pretty easy to skip over little details like this, and I often find that my students do just that. But if you think about your own writing, one thing you will probably have noticed is just how difficult it is to come up with a good title for your work. So why did the author choose this title for Chapter 1? He could have called it Ralph Meets Piggy, or Meeting at the Lagoon, or even Jack Doesn't Kill a Pig. But he chose The Sound of the Shell. My guess is that he chose this title because it is the focus he wanted to bring in this chapter, the shell. Most critics put a lot of importance on the shell, and the shell does play an important part throughout the story. So, why do you think the shell is important? What did you notice about how the different characters reacted to it? Ralph blows the conch, and this brings them out for their first of many meetings, but pay closer attention to how each boy reacts to it. Ralph, Piggy, and Jack all exhibit slightly different attitudes, and already we can see the differences starting to emerge. Now that I've brought them up, I want to talk for a minute about the main characters. First of all is Piggy. A little socially awkward, a little out of place. Why do you suppose Piggy latches on so quickly to Ralph? As we will find out soon enough, Piggy does not really trust easily, so why does he seem to trust Ralph right away, even though Ralph lets out his secret name of Piggy? Piggy has three distinguishing characteristics: his glasses, his obesity, and his asthma. Why do you think the author chose these characteristics for Piggy? Remember that this book is, according to the author, a thought experiment, and in thought experiments, the elements included in the experiment are chosen so that they can help teach the point the author is trying to make. So, why did he choose these features for Piggy? Next is Ralph. What are his key features? One thing the author puts a lot of emphasis on is Ralph's hair. His hair is blonde, and over the course of the story, his hair will change, though I don't want to spoil all that for you. Why this color? Is it important, or just a random choice by the author? He doesn't make mention of Piggy's hair, and really the only other boy's hair color that is mentioned is Jack's red hair. What else do we know about Ralph? He admits he's a slow thinker, but he seems to have charisma and charm. The others are willing to listen to him, even though he doesn't have a lot of intelligence or confidence. Both Jack and Piggy seem willing to let him be in charge. Finally, Jack. He is the leader of the choir boys. He is used to leadership, exerts confidence, and has red hair. Jack is also the only character to have a last name, and the only character to make any kind of mention about being treated like or called a child. He doesn't want to be called by a kid's name. What do these features of Jack tell us about his character, and about how he fits into the author's thought experiment? There are a couple of other characters mentioned in this chapter that we don't get a lot of information about, but whom will become more important as the story continues. Sam, Eric, Roger, Morris, and Simon all will play significant roles later on. So, the next big event in Chapter 1 is that the boys hold an election to decide who gets to be chief. The primary candidates are Ralph and Jack. This is interesting because it marks the first formal organization for the whole group. Jack's tribe has now been incorporated into the larger informal group of castaways, but now that larger informal group is becoming organized. The boys choose Ralph. Why do you think they choose Ralph? What qualities does he have other than holding the conch and blowing it? What does it say about the boys that they choose a leader based on who can make the most noise? What message is the author sending about how we choose our leaders today? Do we choose political candidates based on skills, knowledge, expertise? Or do we choose them based on how much noise they can make or the color of their hair? Despite not winning the election, Jack seems eager enough to join in and help out. He also carves a leadership niche for himself by appointing himself leader of the choir boys, who now become the Hunters. As leader of the Hunters, Jack is eager to explore the island, and this coincides with Ralph's decision to make an expedition to determine for sure if this is an island or not. At this point, it is a good idea to draw out the island for yourself. In my classes, I ask my students to start a sketch for themselves and point out that it should include a few key locations. First is the scar. This is the damaged portion of the jungle where the plane crashed. Sometimes my students don't realize right away that this is what the scar is referring to. Near the scar is the lagoon and the swimming pool, and right next to the pool is the platform where the boys have their meeting. A few hours' walk from the pool brings the boys to Castle Rock. This is the place that Jack thinks would make a good fort, but which doesn't have a good source of water. This is where they spend some time rolling rocks. Finally, the last place they explore today is the mountain or hill. So your sketch should include all of these: the scar, the lagoon, the pool, the platform, Castle Rock, the mountain or the hill. One of the big ideas I like to think about in this chapter, and I like to get my students to talk about, is the idea of democracy, voting, and how we choose. Really, in this chapter, we get a great microcosm of the electoral process. We have nominations, debate, and voting, albeit all super simplified. But there are some key elements that the author includes that I think are interesting correlations between how elections happen in our society. First, I would ask about the voting in blocks. The choir votes as a block, and everyone else votes as another block, except Piggy, who ends up going with the majority anyway. Why is this? How many of the choir thought Jack was the best leader, and how many voted that way out of habit, or, as will become clear later, out of fear? How come nobody else voted for Jack? Clearly, he has better leadership qualities at this point. What does this say about how people vote today? Why are there only two groups? Why didn't the author include more voices? Was this just for the sake of keeping the story simple? Or does he have something deeper to say about our political systems? I don't know the answer to that question, but I still think it is an interesting question. Of course, there are lots of other details, questions, and insights into Chapter 1 of Lord of the Flies, but I'll let you explore those on your own. Thank you for tuning in to Literature Discussions with Kelly Tolman, and be sure to check out all of my video and audio content at literaturediscussions.com.